Hey y'all, I'm Allie Spears, and this is Ag Chicks, where we dig deep with the women who are helping to feed the world. I am very excited to be sitting down with one of my favorite rural-rooted sisters today. Hannah and I met at Natalie's retreat 2 years ago, I guess, at this
Yeah,
point, which is
already.
crazy to think about. But Hannah is seriously one of the sweetest, kindest, most genuine people I've ever met. So I'm very excited for you all to get to meet her today through the podcast and learn a little bit more about her. Hannah, if you wouldn't mind telling everyone just a little bit kind of about who you are and the things that you're kind of up to get things started today.
Well, yeah, thank you. What a sweet introduction to start off with. My name is Hannah Dorn. I am a rural photographer. I focus on farm and ranch photography. I live in South Central Nebraska in a small town called Minden. And I focus on what I call shoebox photos, which are photos that you might not necessarily hang on the wall. They might not be what you're posting on social media, but they're the photos that you just keep and you tuck away, and later down the road, you'll pull those out and just be so grateful to have those memories of what life was like in 2023.
Yes, and that is something that I absolutely love about Hannah's business model and kind of the things that she is really focusing on through your photography business. Um, Even myself, I know I have like a box of pictures and stuff from when I was a kid and then even college. And when we just moved recently, I pulled them out and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to send a message to Hannah and let her know that I
Oh,
miss
yes, I love that.
those. But you are so talented too, and how you capture the families and operations that you tend to focus on. And so I love that you have really found your kind of calling and niche in terms of the area of photography that you have really liked or really enjoyed kind of taking off with. So it's incredible.
Yeah, thanks.
But Hannah, I want to talk a little bit too about kind of agriculture in terms of your involvement in it. So, can you talk us through like growing up? Were you involved in agriculture? How did you get to where you are in terms of being involved in the industry?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a non-traditional story. So I did not grow up on a farm. I did not grow up really involved in agriculture at all. My mom was a high school business teacher and my dad sold cars. So about as far from agriculture as you can really get. I grew up in a town not too far outside of, well, it was dead center between Lincoln and Omaha. So quite a bit of like urban involvement, but it was still a small farm town when I was growing up. It's since grown to be humongous, but um, so I was always interested in plants, always loved to be outside. I had a really awesome high school biology teacher, and so I went to the University of Nebraska Lincoln and started out as a horticulture major. Um, Most of the careers in horticulture involved like landscaping or like raising turf, that kinds of things. And I knew I didn't want to leave Nebraska, and I didn't think I could be too passionate about landscaping. So I ended up transitioning to agronomy, because what's better than helping people grow food? So I transitioned to agronomy and just got very heavily involved on campus at UNL, especially with the East Campus organizations where the Ag College was. And I just met so many friends involved in the industry and just took every learning opportunity I could to submerge myself into it. Graduated with my degree in agronomy, and then eventually down the line married my husband. He has a small or had a small cow calf herd that he started, and I've since married into the herd, and now we're building it together. So that's been really fun, and that's kind of how I got here in a roundabout way.
Yeah, and so I know you have another job outside of your businesses as well that's really connected to the agronomy side of things.
Mhm.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about that and kind of what you do on partially side of your day job on one aspect?
Yes, I feel like I have just like a whole bunch of side hustles.
Right, right.
So I work part-time as the marketing manager at Ward Laboratories, which is an agricultural testing laboratory based out of Kearney, Nebraska. We test for soil, feed, water, manure, plant tissue, really anything involved in agriculture, we can most likely test it. Um, and it's a company that started as just a little tiny small business in Kearney, Nebraska, and has since grown to this international company, which is so cool. The founder, Dr. Ray Ward, turned 85 years old last August. He still comes to the office every single day. He's the most incredible person. I love, I love my chats with Ray. But that's where I spend 3 days a week.
Awesome. Okay. And then you mentioned too, you were not involved in the cattle industry or anything like that until you married Andy, which also they had the cutest proposal. He literally used eggs, which today would be a hot commodity to use as a
Yes.
proposal.
Yes. I had backyard chickens for a hot second. Literally, that's about all the longer they lasted. But there were just enough eggs that they had laid that he could write, "Will you marry me?" on the eggs. So, so sweet.
And funny considering that, you know, you were didn't really have an agricultural background and
Right.
then now you're living the ag lifestyle for sure.
Yes. Yes.
But tell us a little bit about too, you know, not being raised in the industry, but then getting involved in it kind of later in life. What was that like in terms of like, were there challenges or kind of what did it look like, I guess?
Yes, it's just a huge learning curve. And I'm sure a lot of it is perceived, but it just seems like a lot of people in agriculture just know things. Like they just know it. And I'm like, how do you know this?
Right.
So it's just been a lot of like learning to ask questions. And the more questions I ask, the more I realize, no, obviously people didn't just come out of the womb knowing things, like they had to learn somehow. So I just ask a lot of questions, probably to the point of being a little bit annoying, but that's how you learn. And so much of it is like, this is just what we do. Well, why do we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? What if we ran the cows up this way instead of that way? And now it's getting to the point where I've like started to come up with some of my own ideas as I've gotten into it. And even Andy will be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I never thought of it like that."
Yeah, I was actually, that's funny you say that. I was talking to a couple of the past guests, actually. We have brought up that point of either they weren't involved in agriculture and now they are, and they're coming up with kind of unique ways to change things on the operation, or they are a woman in, obviously, a woman in
Yep.
agriculture, and they are have just kind of said, you know, my perspective on things is a little bit different, and that has changed the operation too. So
Yeah.
I love that you have kind of found your way and
Yeah.
your spot and your role in y'all's operation.
Mhm.
And in terms of you said cow calf operation, and
Mhm.
you guys are raising them for show cattle too, to an element, right?
Yes. So our primary goal for our cattle are show cattle. And then what doesn't work as a show animal or doesn't make it as a show animal, we'll sell as freezer beef in quarters, halves, and wholes. We're very small scale. We're just getting started. So we try to set up a business model where we're setting our own price for everything that we sell. That just helps us manage risk a lot better.
Mhm.
Um, and we're not subject to like market fluctuations and trying to just sell like small groups of cattle. We're able to kind of have our own unique like revenue streams for our products.
Yeah, and that is something I feel like a lot of producers are starting to do in terms of the um, direct to consumer, kind of the small shares of beef to the local community. And I think it's changing, I think, the way producers are thinking about how they can continue to make this a sustainable business involved in terms of
Yes.
being involved in the cattle industry.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so interesting, and I think it's going to change things. I think moving forward, and even if just like you said, small scale, obviously, but if more and more ranchers and operations start to do it small scale, I wonder what it will look like in the future in terms of kind of feeding our country and the world.
Yes. Yeah. We're also in a really interesting time, like economically in our
Mm,
country, where obviously we're all seeing inflationary prices and like we're just wondering how that's going to impact not only purchases at the grocery store, but then like, maybe higher dollar farm to table cuts of products. Like, will consumers be willing to do that? Will consumers be willing to pay for an entire quarter or half of an animal at one time up front? Will they be more interested in like spreading out that investment over, several months? What does that look like? And how can we continue to adapt and grow and like meet consumers where they need to be no pun intended. um, and just like kind of manage like the economics of the country without knowing how long this period of inflation is going to last and all of that. So it's been really interesting, and it's had its own set of unique challenges having all of these like outside economic variables, but it's a fun opportunity to just ask some questions, and again, like always try to do things differently and find more efficient ways to do things and just make it better.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the economic point of it as well, because I think that's, yeah, like you said, interesting times we're living in
Yeah,
terms of the economy.
not the most fun times.
Right? Yeah, especially when you are have businesses and
Mhm.
that are depending on how the economy is changing and the markets are changing and
Right.
feed prices and all that kind of stuff. So makes
Yes.
it every day's a new adventure, right?
Yes, yes. Throw in a drought followed by
Right.
maybe we're coming out of the drought, but do we know for sure? Where are
Yeah.
we? What are we doing?
Yeah. And then like here in Texas, I mean, we had a drought and now we've gotten so much moisture that like
Yeah,
we don't know what to do with it. So it's like, oh my
true.
goodness,
I
what are you
know.
supposed to do?
I know. We can't always win. So it's all about adaptability.
Oh, for sure. But interesting point too as well in terms of the consumers, like will they want this product even though it may be at a
Mhm.
higher price. I'm wondering too if that will change the way we communicate with consumers, if they will feel closer to where they're getting their or where their food's coming from, if that will be a change in terms of their knowledge in
Yeah.
about agriculture. And so I think the whole direct to consumer model is very intriguing and for a couple different reasons. Obviously, like we just talked about, the revenue, being able to have less waste in terms of cattle that you guys were not going to otherwise use. You can
Mhm.
repurpose them, so to say,
Yep.
um,
Right.
to feed people. Obviously, that's incredible. Um,
Mhm.
keep your business sustainable, income, revenue, all that kind of stuff. But then just the connection to the community and
Mhm.
people knowing where their food comes from. So
Yep.
it's an interesting model that I'm excited and curious to see how it continues to kind of unfold.
Yes, so are we. And we're fortunate that it's just one small part of our business, so we're not fully
Right.
reliant on what that looks like. So I feel like we're in a really nice position where we can just dabble in it a little and
Yep.
adjust um, as the market is willing.
Yes.
If folks in our community are willing to buy it, we can always, put more into the feeder calf pen. But if sales are starting to slow down, then we can find alternative markets for it. So it's been really nice to have options. And
Yes.
really that's what it's all about, especially for new producers, is just cash flow.
Right.
How can we get money to come in different ways at different times of the year?
Yes, absolutely. And that brings me to my next question. So, show cattle, you guys are probably calving year round, I'm assuming, or do you have specific seasons?
Nope, we're mostly in like the winter to spring time
Okay.
frame. Um, yeah, so sort of this time of year. It's always a gamble with the weather. Like, when is the best time to calve these creature or these little
Right.
critters? Because oh
Right.
my gosh, you think you get the weather figured out and then it changes. So always adjusting, but again, we're learning. But typically, yeah, this time of year is where we kind of start to get into it.
Yes, and for those of you who are listening who are not familiar with Nebraska winters, that is
Oh
a
my gosh.
bold and challenging job all in itself to live in Nebraska during the winter and then also have to calve in Nebraska during the winter. So I
Yes.
commend y'all. We have some other friends who live in Nebraska and they pretty much calve at this time of year too. And they crack me up because they'll be like, "Oh, we're watching them on the cam in
Yeah.
the barn," and then they go out
Yeah.
and they move them around and stuff. So I'm like, "Dang, it's a
Yeah.
different way of doing it," which is I think so cool about the agricultural industry because
Mhm.
every producer is different, every operation is different. No right, no wrong, just different. And I think that
Yep.
that's cool.
Yep. We get a lot of questions like, why do you guys calve in the winter? And it sounds crazy, I know, but the cattle actually do fine when it's consistently cold.
Right.
And, as long as they're born inside, they can get wiped down and moms can lick them off and everything. Then once they get outside, they're totally fine. But the problem is the fluctuations where one day it's 20 degrees, then later that week it's 50 degrees, and now we're dealing with mud and all that. That's the hard part. Um, and that's what keeps changing. Like I swear the seasons are constantly changing, where one year January is
Mhm.
cold, perfect, the cabin conditions are fine. Then the next year January is all over the place, but then February is like the better month. So it's tough. Again, adaptable is the key word in all that we do, but
Yes, for
we're
sure.
trying it out.
For sure, for sure. And I want to switch gears here just a little bit back to kind of your photography business and that. So, I know you mentioned in the beginning, your kind of model behind that, and your focus was having pictures and photos for families to look back on throughout their kind of life. So, can you tell us a little bit about kind of maybe the sessions that you offer, because you have some very unique sessions that I think are incredible for families in the agricultural industry, but then also outside as well.
Yes. So I focus on seasons. So everything we do in agriculture is season based.
Right.
And maybe that's a weather season, or maybe that's like a season in our operation. So I offer what I call 4 season shoots and growing season shoots. 4 season, obviously, 4 seasons. And then growing season is 3 seasons. And so I come out to the farmer ranch and literally just follow you around. Like, we go do what you would normally do on a day-to-day situation, or maybe it's something like a branding, or moving cows from field to field. Maybe it's a bigger event that you don't do every day, but it's still kind of relatively like day-to-day activities.
Mhm.
And like, you guys, or the subjects in the photos would just live their life, and I just capture it as it happens. And of course we can always throw in a couple post photos here and there, but for the most part it's just completely candid, and it's just how it happens, how the day unfolds. And we can get some of the most incredible photos that just tell the story, and they tell so much more than not knocking this. There's nothing wrong with family portraits by any means, but I just feel like those photos don't tell the story of what life is like. And these lifestyle sessions just allow me to kind of capture that. And again, maybe it's not relevant today. Like, we know what we do day in and day out. We don't need pictures to tell us, but you know 3, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, things are not going to look the same. And so it's just so fun to look back and see how things were done in 2023, and how we went about getting things done.
Right. Yeah. See changes, the same things, generational
Mhm.
differences,
Yes.
property differences. Maybe there
Yes.
wasn't a barn there, maybe there was a barn there, and stuff like
Right.
that. So that's so cool.
Yes.
And so, in addition to that, you have some other photography projects that are going on. I know that you are also hosting a session mastermind, um what's the course, maybe is the
Yeah.
right word, to
Sure.
have to teach people how to take better pictures on their iPhones. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of the details on all that too.
Yes. So our phones in our pockets are incredible cameras, like, and they just keep getting better. They are so good. But there's a lot of just little basic things about photography that, if we're not aware of it, are like, it doesn't matter how good our equipment is. If we don't understand these basics, our photos are never going to look good.
Yeah.
I've spent years and years and years learning this, whether it's through my like big nice camera or just the camera on my phone. So I'm packaging some of these tips, paring them down to like the easiest small changes you can make in your smartphone photos to like really level them up. So we'll talk about lighting. We'll talk about just some basic settings on phones that we can alter to kind of level up photos. And then, of course, the $1 million question lately is storage. What do I do? How do I manage
Oh
this? I have
gosh.
so many photos. My iCloud is out of space. What do I do? I'm going to lose everything. And I'll just kind of give you some of my tips for like making sure that those memories stay safe. And then it's all about just being able to capture your own shoebox photos every single day, or every week, maybe not every day, but every week, so that you can have those memories as time goes by.
And that is next week, correct?
Yes, next Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time, and it is recorded. So if you're not able to make it live, you can still register, and I'll make sure to send the link afterwards.
Right. And sorry, we are recording this a few days before this will go live. So this will be
Yes.
this week, actually, because this is coming out today,
Yes.
Tuesday, obviously, if you're listening to this. So the day after tomorrow. And where can they find that information to register? Is it on your Instagram or best spot?
Yep. And on my Instagram, at Hannah Gable Dorn, and it's very hard to spell, but I'm sure that Allie will link
Yes.
it. Um, and then just the link in my bio. There's a registration there.
Perfect. So if you are interested in learning more about how to leverage and better use your camera that you have in your phone or in your phone, in your pocket or your hand every single day, definitely make sure to tune in. I think I'm going to need to tune in just for the storage portion of
Yeah.
that only because, oh my gosh, that is an ongoing battle.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
and
That's
then
a new
like,
thing I'm adding. So, like, just off the wall, before I ever started this webinar, so many people were having the same problem all at the same time. And I'm like, okay, I just need to do some digging and some research and put this all together.
yes, yes, that is, you're sitting on a gold mine right there, just
Right.
just to share that information.
Yes.
And then also kind of along the lines of your photography business and everything too, you are also involved in some retreats now in terms of capturing those moments. So tell us a little bit about that and how you're involved there.
Yes. So actually another rural rooted attendee, Emily Rushell, she was at a different retreat than Allie and I, but we were able to meet at the reunion last January,
Hmm.
over a year ago. Wow, time
I
is
know,
flying.
right? Crazy.
um, I was able to meet Emily, and then she put together her own retreats called Ascend. And so I was hired to photograph the retreat last November in Destin, Florida, and I will be joining her in Branson this coming March to photograph the women there and just the event as a whole. And oh man, so much fun, such incredible people, just such a great space to be in. So super looking forward to that.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming people can register for that still as well through Emily, or do you have that
Yes,
information?
I think there's maybe like one or two spots left.
Okay.
It's nearly full, so very close to being full. The dates I think are March 16th through 18th, if that's a Thursday through Sunday.
Okay. Okay.
Emily's ears must have been burning. I just saw an email come through from
Did
her.
oh, that's funny.
But yeah, it's an incredible time. The women there are amazing, and it's just focused. It's really tailored towards women in rural communities who like everything is going fine, life is great, but feel like maybe, hey, I feel like there's something more out here for me. And for some people at the last retreat, it was just like I want to like our businesses are thriving, but now I want to come back and spend more time with my family. And for others, it was like I've been so focused on my family that I've kind of neglected myself, and now I need to find my own avenues. And some of them were kind of business oriented, some of them were more just kind of like professional development oriented. So there's really it's totally tailored to what you're needing. But for anyone that's just like, man, there's got to be something more.
Hmm.
This is the thing for you.
Awesome, very cool. And kind of along the lines too of women attending retreats as we both have, and obviously
Yes.
how we met. And then kind of having the evolution that follows after. What would you say, like, what was your evolution? Because I know where you started, 2 years ago
Yes.
in March, when we were sitting in the Skirch in
Yes.
Colorado, Golden, Colorado, not Denver. And now, I mean, you're thriving and doing all these incredible things. So tell us a little bit kind of about your evolution of like and realization of yes, this is what I need to be doing, or I need to not be doing that, and kind of because you have a really cool kind of story through all that.
Yep. So I had my photography business started when I'd gone to the retreat, but it was very slow going, and I was still working full time. And I was like, man, I know this can work. I just don't know how to get it to work. And so
Mhm.
I went to the retreat to focus on that. Learned so much more about myself in the process that I had no idea I would be getting. But really, that's the foundation. Like so much of it is working through your why and what motivates you and why you even care about things in the first place. Why do I care about taking these pictures in the first place? Um, and so working through all of that was so much more impactful than I could have ever, like I could have never come to these conclusions on my own ever. So that part of it was just incredible. And then of course you leave and you just want all these things to magically happen, but unfortunately that's not the way it works. You actually have to put in the
Yep.
work, which is ridiculous.
Right. I know. Such a scam.
I know, right? Um, But yeah, just came home and was refreshed with all sorts of ideas and this whole network of women that I could, play ideas off of. We are still in touch to this day, 2 years later. Um, and just was able to like keep working and keep growing and keep learning and keep grinding at it. And last April, so a full year after I attended the retreat, I was finally in a position to be able to cut back to part-time. And then this year, 2023 is starting off with a bang, and I don't know what all the year will have in store, but man, I'm optimistic. It's gonna be fun, and I've kind of niched down into some different offers, and I'm specifically working with farm and ranch families now. There are a lot of other incredible families that I had the opportunity to serve, but now is just the time to focus in on my farm and ranch families. So working a lot towards that in 2023, and then man, you just never know what other kinds of crazy projects will come up in the midst. So it's gonna be fun. It'll be a little bit of a wild ride, but it'll be good.
That's so awesome. I literally am so proud of you and so excited for you
Thank
because
you.
you are doing such incredible things. And I feel like you finally like found like your rhythm and like you're
Yes.
like, yeah, I got this. I'm doing it. It's gonna
Yes.
be great. Like I'm so excited to see more things unfold for you and just to see you continue to develop into the person that you are already, like
Oh, thank
incredible
you.
person that you are, but continue to grow too in all of these spaces and do all these incredible things that you're doing. So um
Thanks.
any kind of parting words of advice for anybody, maybe in agriculture, if obviously if somebody's listening and they're involved in agriculture, but or even just kind of like business advice in terms of developing different things and really letting your business also represent yourself, maybe too.
Yeah. I'd say like if you have a dream, if there's something that in the back of your mind that you're like, man, this would be cool, just go for it, honestly. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, you are gonna have to work at it harder than you ever dreamed that you'd have to work at. There's a good chance it's gonna cost way more to pull this thing off than you ever dreamed. It's gonna take more time, it's gonna take more effort. Um, you will have highs and lows like you never imagined. It will be a giant roller coaster, but gosh darn it, if you believe in it, just go. Just keep going, keep pushing, keep grinding, and just do it.
Yes, I could not have said it better myself. I love it. And Hannah, thank you so much for spending time with me. I'm so glad we finally got this on the
Yes.
books
Oh
and
man, this is a
recorded.
long time coming.
No, yeah, you
The
people who are
timing was
listening, you have
perfect.
no idea. We've had some setbacks for sure on getting this
Yeah.
scheduled, but I think this was probably like the perfect timing.
Yes, this
Everything
is the
happens for a
perfect
reason.
timing.
All the timing always works out. So I'm glad we were able to do this. And Hannah, I know you mentioned earlier your Instagram handle. Is that truly the best place for people to connect with you, or do you want to share an email or website or anything like that as well?
Yes. So Instagram is the best. Just at Hannah Gable Dorn. And again, the spelling is weird, so check the show notes. And then from there you can get to my website, the Zoom webinar, email, all the things.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hannah, and I can't wait to watch you continue to move and shake the world.
Thanks, Allie. This was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ag Chicks. Don't forget to follow along on social media at Ag Chicks on Instagram and Facebook, and that every episode has a visual version on YouTube on the Ag Chicks channel.